So to make our life simple and not have so many else if statements, they came up with this thing called a select case. And the way a select case works is you pick a variable and then you just have a list of things that technically are Boolean expressions, but are just like easier to understand. Usually we're just checking equality. Is our variable this thing or this thing or this thing or this thing? But it could, in some programming languages, you could say like, is this variable greater than 7 or less than 14? So you can use all those inequalities that we have learned. But the example today we're going to do is for equality. So the whole point of this is to try to make our life easier, and the generic form that it looks like is something like this. You either have the word select, it might not be that exact word, depending on your programming language, which we will see. And then you have some variable. And then you have these case statements. And you say, you just put like, in quotations, A. So, is this variable equal to A? If it's true, then do this stuff. And then you could have like 14. So if this variable is 14, do these things. And you just have your list. Once again, you can have as many as you want. And then at the end, there is once again the optional else. If none of these were true, then go here, okay? So for an example program today, what we're going to do is like the old school letter grades. So it used to be that you got like A, B, C, D, and F for failure, okay? So this would be the equivalent of like a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1, and R. Okay, so this was the old school way of doing things. So what's going to happen is the person is going to enter in what their letter grade is, and you're going to tell them how they're doing. Okay, so top-down design, once again, the name of your program, make sure you actually put the name there. Our input is just going to be a single letter grade. The process is going to be finding out how the student is doing. Notice my process is still very generic, okay? Some people are trying to solve the entire problem and put it in there, but that's what the flowchart is for, okay? And the things that we're gonna pop out is you're doing excellent or good job, many other things, okay? Notice that we're not gonna have every example here. And my else I'm gonna use for an invalid grade. So if someone puts in like the letter Q, you're like, well, that's not a letter grade. What are you doing? Okay, so this is going to be my catch-all or my else. So my flow chart, I'm going to have my start. I'm going to get the letter grade. And now I just have if grade. And you'll notice it's slightly different. Remember, I always said you had to have 2 arrows coming out, a true and a false. So this is the exception. You have this coming out, and then you put what it's equal to. So is the grade equal to the letter, that's why it's inside quotes, A? If it is, show this. And then when you're done, go straight down to the bottom and stop. If it's a B, show that it's excellent, and so on and so on. So notice once again, I'm not doing every single example. And then else, tell them it's an invalid grade. Okay, so that's what it looks like in a flowchart. It's the only time where you'll have a diamond with 1 arrow coming off, but really it is many as it breaks out, okay? In our pseudocode, you would get the grade, and then you say select, and you put the variable that you're comparing, and then you say case, if it's A, show excellent. If it's B, show very good, and so on and so on and so on. Here I put every example so that the programmer would know what to put in. And I have else as our catch-all if somebody puts in something that they're not supposed to, okay? So in Python, this would look something like this. So here's my main program. I have my variable grade. I'm just doing a regular input. I don't have to convert it to an integer or anything because it's just a string, right? It's a single character. A special note for Python people, this structure, they use match instead of select, but this only came out in Python 3.10. So if you're using a version of Python that is less than 3.10, this structure didn't exist until then. Also, there's some controversy because it just came out recently. Some people say that this was really never meant to be like a select case. It was for another purpose. And up until this point, it never existed. And you would always use an if, else if, else if, else if in Python. And some people think that this is a bad use of what this is meant for. And really, you should be using an if, else if. So if you ever see somebody commenting on your code and saying, like, this was a bad choice, you shouldn't have used that, the person that created Python said that you should be using if, else if. You're like, yes, I understand that actually. It came out in 3.10, and you can sound like really smart, okay? So to find out what version of Python you're actually using, you can just type in Python and -- version. And that works for like most Linux programs. And you will see we are actually in 3.10-4, so we're good to go, okay? So instead of select, our keyword here is match, and we're comparing it to see whether it is a capital A. Now you'll notice one weird thing that I've added here. The variable was grade, and I've added in this operator at the back. And it's doing exactly what it says, upper. It's just taking whatever string you have entered and making it uppercase. So if the person types in the small letter a, before I would have to compare it a case for small letter a and also another case for capital A, because some people might put small, some people might put capital. But now, if somebody puts in a small a, it will convert this to an uppercase A. And if it is an uppercase A, it'll just keep it as an uppercase A. Okay? So that's a very useful function. Most programming languages have some kind of way of doing that so that when people are entering things, you don't need to worry, like, did they capitalize it or not? So match, case, if it is the string A, print out this. If it's B, print out this, and so on and so on. And the catch-all in Python is actually the underscore. Okay? An underscore by itself is the equivalent to the else. Okay? So if it's not one of the above, then it's this one, and it will just go in. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a breakpoint there, and hopefully this will run. So if the person puts in capital B, so we're going to compare what they put in as capital B. Once again, remember you can select a whole bunch of things and then go to add watch and check to see what's happening. That will be useful when I do a small letter. Okay, so I'm just going to step through. It's going to match with the upper. It's going to see, is it A? Nope, it's not A, so it comes down here. Is it equal to B? Yes, it is, and it goes in. Okay, so that's useful. If I was to run it again, and I put in small c, so hopefully the upper, you'll notice here, that's actually a capital C. Okay, so it's doing the conversion for me. So it's not an A, it's not a B, yes it is a C, so it'll print out average and we're good to go. And if the user enters in something completely ridiculous, like Q, it should go through each and every one of them and not get a match, but it will get a match on the catch-all or the else, and it will print out invalid grade. Okay?